Sameach to everybody. Hanukkah Sameach that we're going to study today, and that Hanukkah should be a Shemira, Tzoah, just like we've had Hanukkah miracles in the past. That made this Hanukkah we have a miracle that the 136 Jews who are being held hostage be released speedily from captivity, and may there be miraculously Hashem provide us a Shemira for all of our Chayalim. So we are going to start on the bottom of Lamed Hey on the base. Is Daf Yomi is Bava Kamma Lamed Vav. We'll start Lamed Hey on the base, 8 lines from the bottom. So the Gemara says, Gufa Amarav Barnasan Tanu Chitin V'Hodelo B'Saorin Pater. That if a person makes a claim, let's say Reuven says to Shimon, "You owe me wheat," and Shimon says, "Well, I don't owe you wheat. I owe you barley." Pater. He not only does he not have to pay him the wheat, he also doesn't have to pay the barley. And Rashi says it's because it's as though the person making the claim was saying, "I'm waiving my rights to the barley. You only owe me wheat." And Gemara says, "Well, my kamasmalon, what is this even teaching us? Isn't this Penina? Didn't we learn this already in a brisa? That the brisa teaches us Tanu chitin v'hodu b'saorin potter, that if he makes a claim for wheat and he admits to the barley, he's potter." Gemara says, "No, ime hasam. If that would be the case, I would have said Havamina Potter means Mechitim Mechayvet Mesorin. If it was just from that price, so without the statement of Rav Bar Nason, I would have said, yeah, he's exempt from having to pay the wheat, but he has to pay the barley. Kamash Malon, like Rav Bar Nason, the Potter Lagamri is completely exempt. He doesn't even pay the barley. So the Gemara challenges Rav Bar Nason's statement from our Mishnah, because what do we learn in our Mishnah? Tanan Hayuani Zakin Shnayim. Let's say the people who were damaged, the person who was damaged had two oxen, echad gadol ve'echad katan. One ox was big and one was small, and then the other one who damaged him was one big one and one small one. And so then, if he makes the claim if the guy says I did the small one, the other one says the guy who was damaged says no, you damaged me from the big one, so I could collect more money. He has to bring a proof. But so let's say he doesn't bring a proof. Says the Gemara from the implication of our Mishnah, halomai siraya. Shakil could become mazik. If he doesn't bring a proof, then what happens is he takes the smaller from the smaller time, like the mazik claim. So isn't this a proof that you're not exempt? Like, isn't this proof against Rabbi Nassim? Rabbi Nassim says you don't even pay the barley, but here the mazik has to pay from the smaller animal. Then Gemara said, and Gemara asks, isn't this the exact same case as the wheat and the barley? No, Gemara says that's not what it means in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah means royally told that if he would bring a proof, he would be able to take from the smaller one the angle. But if he has no proof, he doesn't get anything. Meaning to say, if he brings a proof, but if he doesn't get anything if he doesn't bring it. Meaning to say, don't read it like we inferred. Mara says, what about a different price, which is against Rabbi Barnas? And same thing. But Tanya raised him a katan and a gadol, gadol and a katan. The Mara says, no, that case we're going to give a different answer. That case, even though it says in the brisa that he pays, the mazik pays from the small one for the big one, and for the big one from the small one, means he pays the smallest possible amount. That's talking about a case to tafas, where the nizak took a hold of it already. So since he took a hold of it, he has in his possession to a different status. The Gemara repeats this. Tanan, there is a Mishnah. It's a god of a time as a katan, matzah komer lo. So the same question that we asked before, exact same thing. But if you wouldn't bring a proof, you take it just like the mazik says. Why do we say this is the case of wheat and barley? So Gemara gave the same answer he gave before. No, it means royally told. It means if he brings a proof, he could take it. But he doesn't have a proof. Okay, we're on top of the Gemara says, what about the fact that it says in the price, I raise him a shtalim, katim, and amur, gadol, and atam? Gemara gives the same answer to Tafas. That's where he seized it. Okay, so now we say, if both oxen belonged to one man, and that man did damage, but we don't know which ox did it, then the person then we say both of them are obligated, and the niza could collect. So Amalai Ravami Prarzika. No, we learn from here a very important principle. Shvarim tamim. Let's say you have two oxen that are both tamim. Sheiziko, that they both did damage against one other person. Ratzim mizegova, that he could collect from either one. Why is that significant? What do you mean he could collect from either one? But if one of them was lost, meaning to say they both did $100 worth of damage combined, and this guy wants to collect the money, but one of them was lost, then you could claim it from the other ox, because the tam is only paid from the ox itself, but you could claim it from the other ox under those circumstances. So the Gemara says, so are we arguing in this case that's what we say, that you could collect from either one? That was not a finalized opinion. Where says no, and we're talking about here, why can you collect from either one? We're talking about muadin. The oxen are muads, and so therefore you're not really collecting from the oxen, you're collecting from the estate, or from the person's whole portfolio. So Gemara says, even muadin, if you want to say we're talking about muadin, he must say for it. The next clause say, if one was big and one was small, and Nizek Omer Gadol, Hizik, Mazik Omer Lokil, Katan, Hizik. So in that circumstance, if one ox was big and one ox was small, and the Nizek says the Gadol did the damage, and the Mazik says, no, the small one did the damage, that the person has to bring a proof. But if we're talking about muadin, it doesn't matter which ox did the damage. You're collecting from the portfolio of the person. He collects the money not from the ox, from the payment. So we're clearly not talking about muadin. The Gemara says, okay, you're right. I'm right. Seifa b'tam and v'reisha b'muadin. Okay, the second case of the Mishnah is talking about a tam, but this first case where it says Shneim Chayavim is talking about muadin. The Gemara says, so Rav Acha, Sabo, or Rav Ashi. Well, even muadin, if you want to say the first case is talking about muad, why does it say chayavim? Why does it say that they are obligated to pay, which makes it sound like we're paying from the oxen? Chayav gavrami, by the way. The man is the one who has to pay. The portfolio pays, not the oxen. Visu, furthermore, my shneim, why do you say both of them are obligated? The man is the one who's obligated. So the Gemara says, okay, we have to say that these first two oxen who did the damage were tamin. And so if that's the case, why does it say both of them have to pay? Now, it's not like you thought, this is how Rashi explains it. It's not like you thought that you could collect from whichever one you wanted. No, it's teaching us that as long as both of them are in front of us, you can collect. But if one of them is there, you can't collect it, meaning only if both of them are there. Rabbi Akiva Damar Shitfuninu. And it follows the position of Rabbi Akiva, who says that the nizak becomes a partner in the body of the ox. And so therefore, if one of the oxen is lost, he loses his ability to collect, because maybe basically he's lost his ability to collect. So if both of them oxen are there, then the person has to pay. But if one of them was not there, he could say, bring me a proof that your ox is the one that didn't do it. So therefore he needs both of the oxen to be there, because he becomes a partner in the oxen. But according to Rabbi Yishmael, who says that since he's a creditor, then it's just the value of the oxen. The ox don't need to be there at that time. And that's how the Gemara says, Rabbi Kiva Damar Shutfanenu. The time of the Isnu and Travayu, because both of them are there, the one Mati Matchile, you can't push him off and say, oh, it's the other ox that did it. But if not, both of them aren't there, Mati Amarway, then the Mazik could say, Zilla Isirai, bring me a proof that bring me a proof that it was this ox that did your damage, and I'll pay to you, because you're a partner in that specific ox. So the one who did the damage is the one that has to pay you the money. So that's how we read this Gemara. So and we've finished this beautiful chapter, but we will return to you, of course. Please God, we can't wait till we return. And now we begin on the Mishnah on the Bava Kamma. So this Mishnah is a little tricky, but I must have gone over it a dozen times last night to try and figure it out. And I'll do the best I can, because I'm sure you'll get it much quicker than me. So Shor Shenagach Arba v'Chamisha Shvarim. So let's say there's an ox that gored 4 or 5 times, Zachar Zeh, and it gored them one after the other. And before it gored them, it wasn't able to go to court, so it didn't become a muad. And why didn't it become a muad? The commentaries discuss different theories. Rashi says in between, it was in that context, and it didn't become a muad because it reversed its status, or other explanations is they just didn't get a chance to go to court. It was all on the same day. So an ox that gored 4 or 5 times, then now we know that as sure, Tom pays half damages, but it pays from the ox itself. It can't exceed the value of the ox. So this ox scored 4 or 5 times, one after the other. Then who gets paid first? Now, we would have thought the first ox that gored gets paid first, but that's not what we say. We say the last ox gets paid first. Vim yesh bo mosar, that mean the last ox that's scored gets paid first. And if he has extra after that, yachzor l'shafanav. You go back to the person before him. Vim yesh bo mosar, you go back to the one before him. Yachzor l'shafanav. Shalfnei panav. Achron nisker. So the last person to get gored, his ox, the last one to get gored, he's the one who gets first. Divrei Rebbe Meir. We're going to have to explain why, obviously, because it seems to go against what we would have initially thought. Rabbi Shimon explains this differently. He says, Shor Shavim Masayim. Let's say you have an ox that's worth 200. Shenagach with Shor Shavim Masayim. Let's say you have an ox that's worth 200. The gore is an ox that's worth 200. And the carg is not worth anything. So you have an ox that's worth 200. The gore is an ox worth 200. So therefore, the owner of the ox is responsible for 100. And the carg is not worth anything. No tamana, zeno tamana, zeno tamana. So each of the parties take 100. The nizak takes the 100 of the mazik's ox, and the mazik gets to retain 100. But let's say before he was able to collect it, chazar v'nagach shor acher. This ox goes and gores somebody else. So chazar v'nagach shor acher shavim masayim. Gores another ox that was worth 200. Ha'achron no talmana. And in this case, the second person collects half, and so therefore the last one collects half, and the one before him, meaning to say the one who was struck last, he collects 100, and the guy before him, there's only 100 left in the ox, so they're splitting that between the first nizak and the second and the mazik, so they each one take 50 zuz. Zenotel 50 zuz, zenotel 50 zuz. Chazar v'nagach shor achar. Let's say it goes at that point, and there's another ox. So then we say that the first shavim masayim, achron no tamana. The last one gets to 100. The ones before him split to 50. Shalfan of 50 zuz. And so since the mazik still has 50 zuz left, v'shnayim arishonim, the first two people, dinar zav, they're splitting the remaining 25, and so that's what's left. So basically, we just keep reducing it proportionally by the parties. Meaning to say again, it's the same principle that the last one gets first, but he formulates it this way. The Gemara says, "Masnisa mani." Who is our Mishnah like? Our Mishnah is the Lok Rabbi Yishmael. Our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Yishmael, the Lok Rabbi Akiva. And our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Akiva, because Ik Rabbi Yishmael, if you want to say our Mishnah is like Rabbi Yishmael, remember what did Rabbi Yishmael say? Rabbi Yishmael says that you have responsibility to pay as a creditor. You have to pay your creditors. Well, according to Rabbi Yishmael, Baal Chovos Nimnu, that they're creditors. So therefore, Hay Achron Niskar, why do we say that the last person gets paid first? If they're lining up as creditors, Rishon Niskar, by the way, the first one should be paid. The owner of the first ox that was scored should collect first. The Gemara says, "An ik Rabbi Akiva the Amar Tura deshut for you." And if you're like Rabbi Akiva, says that the person who's gored becomes a partner in the ox. Hayesh bo mosar. If there's anything left, why does it say yachzir on the top of 36b? Why does it say yachzir shalafanav? Why does it say he returns it to the person before him? Yachzer Lakuan. He's really referring Lakuan, by the way. It needs to say that he's returning all the extra money according to all of the previous owners. Everyone is getting his portion. So Rava says, okay, well, Olam Rabbi Yishmael. We're going to say that this Mishnah follows the position of Rabbi Yishmael, who says that all the people who are gored, they become creditors. When the kashuach achron niskar, rishon niskar, and if you're asking why does the last one get paid first, the first one should get paid first, because what we're talking about here is nizak with gavos imenu. Now we're talking about here is that the nizak grabbed a hold of it to collect it. V'nasa alav kishomer sachar u'nezikin. We're talking about a case where the one who was damaged grabbed a hold of the ox. He grabbed a hold of the ox. And so since right after he was damaged, he grabbed a hold of the ox, he became like he was a guardian of the ox. And so therefore, he's responsible for the damage it did to the next party. So if that's the case, he says the Gemara Yeshba Moser Yachzeu Shalfanav. Why does it say if there's extra, it should go back to the person who's in front of him? It should say Yachzer Abalmi, by the way. It should say he should return it to the owners, because the reason why he's losing the money is not because he's before him, it's because he's acting as the owner by being the guardian. So Amar Ravina, Hachikatani, Ravina says that, well, that's how we read our Mishnah. If there's extra, Yachzer L'Shalafanav. Means to say that's how we read it. That if there are indeed are leftover money after it was paid, and so he doesn't need to pay to the entire last person, he should return this extra damages to the former person. But he doesn't collect all of his half damages, but rather he deduct from him the value that he paid to the damage that was after him, and the rest he collects for himself. Ravin Amar Yochanan Mishum Pshia Shomrin Nagaba. So he said, what we're talking about here is because the problem is that he didn't watch it properly. So the Gemara says, so what if we established that this position of why do you pay the last one first is like Rabbi Yishmael, and that's how we explain the position of Rabbi Meir in our Mishnah. The Gemara says, but if that's the case, but the next cause is Rabbi Shimon. And the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon says, Shor Shava Masayim, Shenagach Shor Shava Masayim. If a knapsack was worth 200, a quarter of a knapsack was worth 200. And the carcass is not worth anything. Zeno Tamana, Zeno Tamana, Chazav Nagach Shor Achar Shava Masayim, Achar no Tamana, Shalfanam Zeno Tachamishim. V'zen zuz, v'zen no tachamishim zuz. Chazav Nagach Shor Shava Masayim, Achar no Tamana, Shalfanam no tachamishim zuz. V'shnam Rishonim Dinar Zav. So there, remember, I just read what we said at the position of Rabbi Shimon, that the last one to be gored collects 100, and Mazik and the previous person who was damaged split the 50 that's remaining, and then if it goes to gores again, the next guy gets 50, and the Mazik and the previous is split to 25. So that's the case of Rabbi Shimon. That's how they divide it. But if, according to you, also Rabbi Akiva, that seems to be following the position of Rabbi Akiva. Damar Ture Deshutfahu. It says that the reason why they're doing it is because they're partners, and so therefore he's sharing in the. According to him, immediately after the goring, the nizak is taking his share from the body of the ox, and so therefore it's his job to protect it, and so therefore he pays his share. And if that's the case, Reisha Rabbi Yishmael, say for Rabbi Akiva, you're saying the first cause is Rabbi Yishmael, which says that he's a creditor, but he came to guard it, and the last cause is Rabbi Akiva, who says that he becomes the equal partner. Gemara says, that's how we have to say it. That's what we have to say. The Amar Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda Shinana Shvog Mas Nisim V'Sabatzra. He said Shmuel abandoned a sharp one. Shmuel says to Rabbi Yehuda Shinana, a sharp one, abandon the Mishnah and follow after me. Reisha Rabbi Shmuel will say for Rabbi Akiva. Now this is said many times in Shas. I don't know exactly how many, but he says this. Shmuel says to Rabbi Yehuda, Shinana, sharp one, abandon the Mishnah and follow me. The Mishnah represents two different opinions. Normally, when they say that, however, it's too anonymous. It's the whole Mishnah is anonymous. Here, it's not a shock to say it's two separate opinions, because the Mishnah itself reflects the position of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon. So the fact that we have to say that the Reish is Rabbi Shimon and the Seif is Rabbi Akiva, that's not a big chiddush, but still the Gemara uses that formula. Okay, so now since the Gemara discussed this, the Gemara goes into a tangential discussion, which is very powerful spiritually. Tanan Hasam, we learned in the Mishnah in Bava Kamma and Tzadi, Atokeo Chavero. Tokeo Chavero, Rashi has two pshatim, two explanations. That one is if you strike your friend in his ear and you cause him damage, and the other is that you actually make a loud sound in his ear. No single sela. You give him a sela, which is in exchange for his humiliation. You also pay him the other damages, but since you humiliated him, you have to give him a sela, which is a coin. So Rabbi Yehuda says, Mishum Rabbi Yosef mana. Rabbi Yehuda says you have to give him a mana. Where a mana is 100 zuz. We said yesterday, or we said in yesterday's daf, that the sela is 25 zuz. But that's not really accurate because so there was a man who gavra the takil chavre. There was a man who did this to his friend. He hit him on the ear. Shalchi Rav Tuvia bar Masna kamed Rav Yosef. So Rav Tuvia bar Masna sent a message to Rav Yosef. Okay, I have to pay him a sela, but what kind of sela? Sela Tsuri Tanan or sela Medina Tanan? Is it a sela that's called a Tsuri, which is 4 zuz, or is it a sela Medina, which is 1/8 of a sela Tsuri, and that's a half a dinar? So I have to pay him a sela, but is it 4 zuz, or is it half a zuz? So which is it? So that's the question. So he says, Tanan, Amrway, or Sal Medina Tanan, what's it talking about? So Amrway Tanisua, we learned this. Where do we learn this? We learned this in our Mishnah. Shnaim Arishonim, Dinar Zav. And the first two, how much do they pay? They pay a gold coin. Tani Tana Sal Medina, if you want to say that he's talking about the Sal Medina, which is 1/8 of a Sela Tsuri. So therefore, Nifog V'nisnei Tracer Sela. Then Rabbi Shimon should have said, not only are we dividing it up and to give him a Sela Medina, we should say the next case, which is that if he gored again, that he would then give the next denomination down, which is a tracer of a Sela. And so each one will receive 12 zuz, and then a Sel Medina, which is a half a zuz. Meaning to say it should have added another step instead of just jumping straight from 25 to 1/8. It should have given the steps in between. So the Gemara says, Amrway, Tana Kirucho, listening to you think the Tana has to say all of the cases? The Tana is not coming to teach us simple arithmetic, which is not simple for me, but his Tana is not coming to teach us simple arithmetic. He's just giving us a paradigm. And so then it says they split it up until they can't really split it anymore before it becomes worthless. So my Avia, now going back to the case of the guy who strikes the other person in the ear, how much does he have to pay him for humiliation? So Pashtua, Mehadam Rav Yehuda or Rav, they answer this question from that which Rav Yehuda taught in the name of Rav, called Kesef Omer B'Torah Kesef Tsuri. Anytime the Torah talks about Kesef, it's called Kesef Tsuri. V'Shel Devreim, when they talk about the money that you owe rabbinically, what do they say there? It's talking about Kesef Medina, 1/8. And so therefore, somebody who strikes his friend in his ear has to pay one half a zuz. So there was a guy who said, well, that's all I'm getting, a half a zuz. What am I going to do with it? I don't want it. He says, give it to the poor. And then, he says, you know what? Give it back to me. I'll take it. I'll use it. I'll get healthy. Meaning, I'll go buy my lunch with it. I'll go get healthy with it. Rav Yosef says, sorry. The second you said give it to the poor, you can't take it back. Once you say give it to the poor people have grabbed hold of it and it's theirs. Gemara says, what are you talking about? Even though there are no poor people there, we're in a court. Rav Yosef was the Gabbai Tzedakah. And so he says, I am the hands of the poor. I seized it for the poor, and I'm going to give it to them. Orphans don't need a prusbul because we are the hands of the orphans. And it's as though they already deposited their contracts with us, and so therefore we're protecting it. The orphans don't need a prusbul. And Rabbi Gamliel and their court, they are the fathers of the orphans. I was thinking that today there are orphans there are so many orphans by Hamas. Hamas killed. I was saying the Malko family. They killed both parents. So there are orphans now in Am Yisrael. And the Bezdin needs to be the father of these orphans. Now we have a story. It's a little humorous. I guess not to the person who happened to, but reading it today, it's humorous. Chanam Bisha Gavra. Chanam Bisha struck a guy. Also, coming to Ravuna, came to Ravuna Amalei Zil Havle Palgo Zuz. Ravuna says, give him a half a zuz. So he says, go give him a half a zuz. Havle Zuzah Mecha. So Chanam Bisha had a zuz, but it wasn't a good coin. It was a bad coin. Meaning to say, it would have been hard to use in the marketplace. He said, I'm giving you the zuz. You owe me a half a zuz. I'm giving you a bad zuz. I'm giving you this coin, but you have to give me back half a zuz from it. Well, I'm a shtakle, but the guy didn't want to take it because he says, you're giving me a bad zuz. So they started fighting over the bad coin. One guy's saying, I'm giving it to you. The other one says, no, it's not. I don't want to have to try to change it. It's not going to work for me. So what did he do? So Takaway Achrina, he says, "Oh, I owe you. So I need to give you. Right now, I owe you a half a zuz, but you're not taking my coin, which is a zuz. I know what I'll do." He struck him on the other ear, and now he says, "Okay, now I owe you a zuz." Anyway, he gave him the whole zuz. That's how he got out of the problem. Anyway, obviously, he did it out of frustration because if he would have done it intentionally, the rabbis would have penalized him even more because he's a guy who's a boxer and he's not supposed to act like that. I think they put this story in to give us a little smile. And it's Hanukkah, so we could always use a smile, obviously. Here we see, by the way, just to point out, Chanan Bisha. The word Chanan comes from Hanukkah, Chanan. So we see here a reference to the holiday of Hanukkah, and may it be a shmira and a segula for all of us. So we're going to daven upstairs. The davening